Welcome back. Dancing to the What's Left music. We're running a little bit late, but the fabulous Bonnie Yates has been patient and waiting for us. She is on the phone with us now. She's a special education attorney with Hirji and Chow. She's amazing, and she's here to answer some of your questions and enlighten us about legal matters. So, Bonnie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Shannon. Good morning.
Good morning. Would we like to start with talking a little bit about Hirji and Chow and what people need to know about them? Okay.
A very little bit, because I want to get to all the material that we have. So, because Hirji and Chow is really committed to the idea of public education in a number of different ways, they give me time every Thursday to do this little show that, not little, big, really, that Shannon has been midwifing over all these years. And so I'm really always just tickled that we get to do this, and so happy that we get to talk to people, outside of LA County and in other states and so on. We're a Southern California-based law firm. We do disability discrimination and special education matters. We can be reached at 310-391-0330, and generally, if you contact us, whether it's via the website or by phone, we can give you a more personalized free consultation, which is a good idea because I'm only answering questions under California state law or federal law. And if you have a problem and you think you need to talk to a lawyer, that probably means it's time and you should do that. So anyway, I guess the other thing about that is COPAA.net, COPAA.net. Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates is another way to find a lawyer if you need a lawyer and you're outside of Southern California. So there are resources even if you cannot pay, because IDEA contains a fee shifting statute. So that's a lot more than I meant to say, but that's kind of what we're doing.
And I also want to say that the website for Hirji and Chow is lawyerforchildren.com, I believe. Or is it .org? We'll find out.
No, I think it's .com. And the other thing is, and I haven't mentioned this on the show before, we are affiliated with a storefront law clinic in Compton called Community Lawyers, Inc.
Ooh.
And there's a monthly clinic there, and so parents can pay $35 and have like a full consultation with an attorney from Hirji and Chow.
Wow.
So that's something else we do.
How would we find out more about that, Bonnie?
I'll provide it to you, Shannon.
Okay, fabulous, wonderful.
Yeah,
and then you have a disclaimer.
Cool. It's a storefront law firm for that community, and that's a community that doesn't have a lot of access to justice, let's just say. And so the people at CLE are doing landlord-tenant stuff. They're kind of trying to be a one-stop shop for families that just wouldn't have access to an attorney otherwise.
Wow.
So, but it's not, it's not shuck and jive at all. I mean, you go in, there's a conference room, you have a meeting with a lawyer, they give you a bunch of advice, and then you decide what you want to do with that information.
I love it. And then you also have a disclaimer about the things when you answer questions. Well, you already sort of addressed
I said that.
You did.
That they're general answers, and if you have a specific problem, like some of the problems I'm going to be talking about later today, it's better that you consult a lawyer. It's easy to make mistakes, and a lot of the time, like if you don't make those mistakes on the front end, things come out a lot better on the back end. And once something is already messed up, it takes a lot more energy to unfoul it up, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Anyway.
Okay. So let's jump in.
You're going to read the questions for a while, and then I'll read some.
Okay. So I think this is where we left off. Can the school tell me they don't have to give my daughter speech if I can't do it on their schedule? My daughter is 4 and getting card services in LA. School is telling me that they give her speech on Thursday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. She has therapy then and will lose a lot of therapy if I have to take her out, drive her over, and bring her back. I have said I can bring her any morning before school or during school before 10 a.m. They're telling me I either have to take it or sign a paper saying I refused it.
Yeah, well, I gave some thought to this, and my impression is it's not reasonable to say that there's only one time a week that would work for services. If she has another commitment in the afternoon. I guess the question is, what time does school end? And so I don't want the parents to run into a different problem, which is like they're taking her out early for card services without IEP team permission, and I don't want that to turn into a huge problem for them. But on the other hand, I think she could just write them a reasonable, polite letter that says she needs her speech in the morning, she gets much more benefit out of it. We have a medical appointment, a standing medical appointment at 2 in the afternoon most afternoons. Although that's a little funky, but I can't, I think that's what it is, or a treatment appointment that she can't miss. And then I would give them a bunch of other times that she is available for speech, so it makes it clear that she's being very reasonable, and I would try that. That'd be the first thing I would do.
Okay.
You definitely should not have to forfeit your speech services in order to get your ABA services.
I agree.
My kind of somewhat off the cuff reaction.
I agree. Okay, so the next question says, I'm in Kansas. I watched the show and saw you say I should bring a tape recorder to the IEP. I put it in writing and brought it. The teacher said something really inappropriate about my son and his ability to learn. I won't even repeat it. What do I do now?
Tell me again, in what context was that at the IEP meeting?
So they were at the IEP, and I think this is interesting. This isn't the first time I've had this question, that we tell them all the time, bring the tape recorder, because you're going to catch them sometimes saying something on the tape recorder. Well, she caught something that was really inappropriate, but now what do you do with it?
Did she specify what was the really inappropriate?
She said it was something about her individual child and his ability to learn.
Well, there's a number of things you could do with it. You could ask to have a meeting with the principal and the teacher. You could make a UCP, which is a school level complaint of discrimination. You could just document it. But I'll tell you a little story. I think I told this story before on the air, but it's got a new chapter. So our client went to an IEP meeting, and she and her advocate stepped out during the break. She thought she paused her recorder, but it kept going, and she picked up conversation between the teachers saying how, basically disgusted they were about a lot of things. And, like the child's getting so many services and so on and so forth. Anyway, I just filed for due process like a day ago, and I get a letter last night at 10 o'clock from the school district attorney saying, we don't agree with a lot of the things that you alleged in your complaint, and but we'd really rather prefer to resolve this matter, which to me seems very interesting for a variety of reasons. And it only makes sense if it's because the school people have told the attorney that they screwed up at the IEP, because the kid is out of school and the IEP offered the kid a fair amount of services, even though they had this impermissible discussion with the recorder running where they said, we can't, let her have her one-to-one in her other services. I think like her one-to-one can't go to OT with her because we never allow that. So there's it only makes sense to me that they want to settle. They're behaving so differently from normal because the attorney must know that this is what happened. So I'd say what you do with the information depends on what your long-term goals are. And it certainly can be used depending on what the goal is in the service of those goals. Because I think, I guess my other caveat is sometimes parents think things sound worse than I think they sound, so I always have to listen to it myself. But assuming your characterization is correct, then I think there's a variety of useful things you can do with it.
Absolutely. And I'll just say that I was in an IEP meeting 2 separate times with the same person, who the first time I asked her a question about the program that she was offering for my child, and I said, well, do you have data on the success rate? Because first I asked her what the mission of the program was. She was trying to have my child be put in special education, my child who had never been in special education. And I said, okay, well, help me to understand, because she was giving me all these reasons that didn't have to do with my child about why he should be in special education, that didn't make any sense to me at all. And I was trying to be respectful, and I said, well, so what is your goal? Is your goal to put him back in gen ed? And I said, what's the mission here? And she didn't know. And then she said, well, of course, our mission is to take these kids and put them back into gen ed if they can. And I said, okay, great. Do you have any data over the years of, has that ever worked? Have you ever been able to transfer somebody from special ed? And she looked at me with tape recorders whirring and said, oh, we don't take data. We don't believe in data.
Well, that's good.
Right?
I'm glad we got that worked out.
Right. And I went, okay, we're done here. Let's pack up our dolls and dishes. And what I did with that was that I called her boss and said, I'm not talking to her anymore. I'm talking to you, because she's saying things that you don't want her to say in the tape recorder. Listen. And I told her exactly which time code. I said, listen to what she says when I asked her this, and then let's just you and I meet from now on. But then they had me meet with her again, and I didn't even bring it up. And she offered it on her own and said, well, because we don't take data. We don't believe in data. We never take data. We're not keeping track of whether what we're doing works. On the tape.
What district was this, Shannon?
I'm not going to say that, right? Because, I can't open that can of worms, but,
Well, I'm not sure that you can't. I mean, it's not confidential.
Well, rather than have them, I'm done with them.
I only bring that up because I have a privacy issue to raise with the audience. But anyway, it's your I'm not trying to.
No. But I will respectfully decline to answer, only because I'm done with them and I want to be done with them. But in any case,
you're in a better place.
I'm in a better place. But what I was able to do with that information is keep going back to that person's boss and saying, I'm not dealing with this person. This person said this. And, if, I have that recorded twice, and if you want more people to know that that's what's happening, and then suddenly I got a different meeting and I got a different offer of tape.
Yeah. They always make it seem as if there's no way in hell that certain things could happen.
Right.
And then when you have one of these, impermissible statements made and it's recorded, all of a sudden it's like everybody's singing a different tune.
Yeah.
So...
But when you've got something like that, you've said this to me before, it's like gold. It's like your ticket to negotiate and everything,
it is.
Once you decide what you want.
It's like you step out your front door and somebody hands you like a prepaid, what are those little, like a prepaid credit card that you get at the market for like $25,000 in compensatory educational services.
There you go.
Like,
what a nice way.
Start charging things on your card now.
Right. Okay.
So I think we're on to the next.
Okay, so the next question is, the school has given my child an aide who is clearly not trained. He's 19. For all I know, he just walked in off the street with no training. Don't I have a right to ask if he's had training? Do I have the right to ask for someone else? Is there a credential for these aides? What words do I use? I want someone who is more than just a glorified babysitter. The last aide was great, but she left to become an ABA therapist.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. So this comes up a lot, right? Because, if you go back to the very beginning, let's just call the very beginning, for the heck of it, the LOVA study, which was the study that made it known to the world that intensive ABA for children with autism was a very effective means of remediating autism. So, the public schools in the 90s started getting hit with requests for private or non-public ABA programs to be in place in the school for kids with autism. And so it didn't take very long for the school districts to start quote, training, unquote, their people. And the fight for many, many years was directed toward, either not having to give a one-to-one support person at all, or if you did have to give them, give a district person, because the differential in cost was really high. I mean, I don't know that I have current numbers, and unfortunately, from my perspective, the amounts paid for non-public agency services, they haven't really gone up in about 15 years. But the way the mechanism works when you have an ABA provider that comes in from the outside is your school district is contracting with an entity that has in place a lot of resources to train people, and they set minimum standards or levels of training so that when they deploy those people, if they're new, they're in a good position to start working with the kid. The public schools were never set up to be, an autism education and training facility. They have many, many things that they do. And there's nothing in state law that requires their people to have minimum standards as far as training. So they probably have a written policy or a written job description for what their aid support is supposed to look like. And you can probably get it by making a public records request or just asking for it at the IEP team. But that said, they will not like it when you want to ask about the qualifications of the ABA provider, at the IEP meeting. But and they will probably try to get you off the topic by telling you that they'll send you, like there's two versions of this. One version is they just shut you down. Another version is they say, well, we don't want to talk about this. Use IEP team time to talk about this. We're going to send you some information outside of the meeting about minimum training requirements. Well, the problem with that is it's a denial of parental participation. If you think about it, if your kid has a half-time or a full-time one-on-one at school, they're going to spend a lot more time with your kid than anybody else. And so the idea that you can't ask questions about the service or the qualifications of the person who provides the service is a denial of parental participation at the IEP meeting. So for that reason, you actually have a right to inquire, and you should inquire at the IEP meeting because that's the perfect time to discuss it. But I'm not surprised that they're trying to shut you down because they don't want to have that discussion because, some of these people have had a high school diploma, not even a BA, and then the training they give them is really shuck and jive too because it's only online training. And I'm not saying that there's no place for online training and training people, but I also know that if you don't give anybody any face-to-face training, my reaction, like if I do the mandatory continuing legal education stuff, I've stopped doing it online because I don't stay focused. It's not really that interesting to interact with a computer. And so for those reasons, the aid qualifications are highly suspect. They're usually very little trained. Maybe they've had 20 or 30 hours of online training or something. And so they're probably not going to be the greatest for your kid. So where did the question leave off? Whether she has a right to inquire about this? She absolutely does. And I guess the question would be, well, what do you do if they won't let you inquire, if they shut you down at the meeting? And I think the answer to that would be, it's useful for using in due process. That's what the answer would be.
Okay. And so, but again, because one of the specific things that this parent asked is, what words do I use? And you used some pretty good words there. You said, what was the parental?
That it would be a denial of parental participation
because you
Um,
are a member of the IEP team, and if everybody else on the IEP team gets to know what that person's training is, but you don't, that is a denial of
Well, it's not that they know and you don't, because they might not know. It's that it's a service, it's an important service, and in order for you to evaluate whether or not the district is offering FAPE when they put you in the classroom with this person,
yeah.
you have to be able to ask questions about their qualifications.
Okay.
So
Very reasonable.
it's a dead bang winner issue for parents, and districts know that, and that's why they try to shut it down.
All right. Now
Yeah.
I came to you late, Bonnie. So we should be ending now, but I came to you late. So I've got 6 more minutes for you. What would you like to talk about? Do you want to keep doing questions, or do you because I know you had stuff you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we finish the questions.
Okay. I don't have the other questions, do you?
Actually think that the other questions were the questions we just did. Let me just check and see if there's, you know what, since I don't want to take any time doing that, let's talk about something else.
Okay.
Let's talk about just 2 things I wanted to tell people about very quickly. It's assessment plan time because school is back in session. If you want your kid assessed, the best way to develop an assessment plan is at an IEP meeting. If you consent to the assessment plan that comes home in your son or daughter's backpack, it will be an assessment that is being done without any input from you. So, if you are interested in having specific things be addressed, it's important that you consider at least having an IEP meeting to give people written feedback about what you think they ought to be looking at. Now, once you have that discussion, the district will develop an assessment plan and they'll send it to you. And the first thing you'll notice is that it just has areas checked off. It doesn't have people who will do it or what tests they will do. And the question is that legal? And the answer is yes. They're only required to, I should say, give you general information. However, there are instances in which your response to the assessment plan might be to say, well, yes, I consent to this type of assessment, but only if it's done by the right person. The example I'm thinking of is LAUSD now is doing all their functional behavior assessments. They're having special ed teachers do them rather than BCBAs. And I am told that they are not trained on how you do these assessments. So you might add something to your assessment plan that said, I'm consenting to this. However, I require a trained person who knows how to administer the blah, blah, blah assessment. The other thing you can do is just do nothing, and then when they do a bad assessment by an untrained person, you can then ask for an evaluation at district expense. So that's another way to go. But anyway, once you get that assessment plan, you do have the clock running, and you only have 15 calendar days from the date of the referral to return the assessment plan. And if you don't do it in that time, it gives rise to problems, including the possibility that the district might file for due process and get the right to assess. But if you delay signing the assessment plan, that's going to be used against you when you say the district didn't meet my kid's needs. They're going to say, well, yeah, you sat on an assessment plan for 60 days, so we couldn't even start the process. So I wanted to just let people know that now that we're back in school, they have to send you an assessment plan. You have 15 calendar days from the date of the referral to return it. And then within 60 days of your returning it to the district, they have to have an IEP meeting to review the assessments that they've conducted. So I just wanted to go over those timelines again because it seems like it always comes up.
I love hearing all that information because it is sort of like a decision tree, and you just gave us good information about what to do, because it does come home in the backpack often saying, oh, can you sign off on
check these boxes? Yes, right. Exactly.
And we want to do these
check carefully too, because sometimes they make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had this great LAUSD case where the only assessment they were supposed to be doing was a behavior assessment. But they checked all the boxes, and then they didn't respond to us for like 9 months or something. So that resulted in them having, maybe it was fewer than 9, maybe it was 4 months, I don't know. But anyway, that resulted in them having to pay for all private evaluations because they waited an unreasonable amount of time to implement the assessment plan.
Well, and we just had a question earlier when we had one of our autism experts on the show where a parent had written in and said, you know, CARD wants me to take my child out of school for a clinic, and, you know, my child is behind and I don't really want to miss school. And he talked to them about, you know, why CARD is asking that you take your child out for a clinic. But what I saw and what I see all the time is that schools, if you want to take your child out for anything, school wants your child to be in school, and they will say to you, they're already behind, and you know they're just going to get more behind. But then they will happily pull your child out of class to do all of their assessments, which makes me completely nuts. If it's, and they'll say, but it's important. We have to do these assessments so that we can get better. I always made the argument that of when they could pull him out, that they had to pull him out during things that where he wouldn't get further behind, and not during the classes where it was pivotal for him to be there.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think that people are dishonest. And I have lots of theories about why the system makes them dishonest. But the bottom line is they're still, they're dishonest. So, you got to kind of you got to stand your ground no matter what issue it is. And if something doesn't make sense to you or it doesn't pass the smell test, there's probably a good reason.
You're so awesome, Bonnie. We're unfortunately out of time. Will you tell them again about Hirji and Chow?
Yes. Hirji and Chow, we can be reached at 310-391-0330. We look forward to hearing from you. We love your questions. Keep up the good fight.
Thank you so much. We'll see you back next week.
Talk to you next week.
Okay, take care.
Sounds good.
Bye, Bonnie.